Moxen, Moxie. What on earth does the name mean?
Alpha Mox Jet.
What?
That was my way into these cards, at least. Looking up the word in an English dictionary will yield no results. In a Latin one, you will find a definition around the English word soon or following. Is there a connection here? Lands you can play at any point can certainly help you to cast your spells sooner. You could just use the internet, but come on, this whole paragraph is centered around the idea of looking stuff up in the dictionary and finding incomplete or incorrect information. Needless to say, Wiktionary beats all other contenders. See Fully Automated Luxury Communism by Aaron Bastani for more on how crowdsourcing might eventually find its way.
We're going to be in Columbia next year. The freshman class is going to explain the Iliad and the Odyssey on Rap Genius.
And shows us the Proto-Indo-European origin of the word mox, from which we get pretty close cognate terms in Sanskrit and Irish. This is a bit of a wild goose chase, though, since the term was a Richard Garfield neologism, modeled on the American English vernacular word moxie, meaning courage, pluck, or drive. It seems like this word came from a popular brand of soft drink. We can thereby see how capitalism innovates not only in the range of vape flavors consumers can choose from, but in the tools it presents its denizens to express themselves with.
Our company has a new strategic initiative to increase market penetration, maximize brand loyalty, and
It's a good chastener, too, to word obsessives. Some things just sound fun to say, like spool.
Box 3, spool 5.
The practical origin of the word has been demystified, but we can still dare to dream. The squad over at MTV Salvation have some fanciful but interesting speculative etymologies.
It's an old-fashioned hole digging. By gar, it's been a while.
Nuclear fuel, which is on the money, mechanically speaking at least, or a portmanteau of foe and mock. These prompt us to consider, what is a mox? Is it a piece of jewelry? A trinket imbued with magic? A massive version of those semi-precious stones they used to sell in bottles at tourist attractions? Their original artwork certainly looked like otherworldly pieces of jewelry, carrying some arcane power. The pig or squig creature biting down on the emerald in Mox Emerald looks like it knows a thing or two about ramping. But more to the point, the brushstrokes and slightly strange perspectives make us feel like each Moxen was painted from memory or legend, a reconstruction of something that might not possibly be, and in most cases will not be.
Yeah, got a TR3, bought it for 1,200. Done it up, now it's worth $3,000.
Profit on that.
New
Just
suspension, new engine.
Just a wreck.
Speaking of worthwhile investments and things whose existence is somewhat blurry, the Moxen were elevated from being paintings of jewelry to actual pieces of jewelry in 2007, with the Moxes, the Jewels series, although as far as I could find, there's no field reports of these, so we can't verify whether they imbued their wearer with extra energy or heightened reflexes. But if you do own one, let me know in the comments. They at least have a better shot of elevating your standing in society than the latest LVMH luxury simulacra.
Man, money ain't got no owners, only spenders.
As game pieces, the Moxen offer a little more utility than an Hermes Apple Watch. They offer the most asymmetric and powerful mana acceleration that's ever been printed. Longtime players will be familiar with the gradual hardening of mana resources as a mechanic. Shout out here to my Pauper deck for the Blood Pet Brawl, a Pauper event in the summer of 2024. Ramp, what it do? It was a very stock list with their name referencing the clip song Wamp Wamp What It Do, which was considered to be too salacious for the compilers of the tournament's deck list, who downgraded it to Gruul Ramp in the MTG Goldfish Roundup. Mass land destruction is pretty much verboten now, though a few instances of an extremely diluted version of this effect have cropped up. Targeted land destruction has been pushed from 3 to 4 mana, with your extra mana buying a very mild effect like scrying or the option of artifact destruction. On the flip side, artifacts which allow unchecked acceleration in colors outside of green have been brought into line. Mana rocks, cheapish artifacts which tap for mana, have been pushed towards costing 3 mana and tapping for 1, as well as being given color identities rather than the colorless 2 mana ones players would use to historically ramp in EDH. 0 mana artifacts that you can tap for 1 mana, go in any deck, and can all be played out at once have indeed been banned out of every format except Vintage.
The right to censor refuses to turn the blind eye to this disgrace.
And while flexibility of the mana curve may have been quite brutally leveled out, it hasn't reached Hearthstone levels of predictability, and the Moxen's legacy of allowing colors which can't usually ramp to use artifacts to execute mana-hungry strategies lives on. Every arcane signet on 2 owes a little debt to the Moxen. Whilst a card like Springleaf Drum doesn't do anything close to the universal power boost provided by the Moxen, snowballing artifact strategies, often powered by the affinity mechanic, still turn up in Modern, Pauper, and beyond, with Modern Horizons 3 Limited even pushing the Rakdos color pair towards an affinity strategy.
You're Daryl Strawberry.
Yes.
You play right field.
Yes.
I play right field too.
So?
Well, are you better than me?
Well, I never met you, but yes.
All of these archetypes, despite being a lot more balanced and probably more fun overall, taking into account your poor opponent's feelings, are built on Moxen DNA. Like a tired, middle-aged couple trying to recapture the magic of a first date, Wizards have printed multiple Moxen since the original 5, trying to balance them out and maintain their mystique, the thrill of casting them while not allowing them to destroy any game they feature in. Mox Diamonds, first printed in 1998 Strongholds and only physically reprinted in From the Vault Relics, as technically it's part of the reserved list, asks that its caster discards a card as they cast it, otherwise it goes straight to the graveyard, taxing your cards in hand for a mana boost. Chrome Mox from 2003 makes use of Mirrodin's imprint mechanic, asking its caster to exile a non-artifact, non-land card underneath it to switch on its mana production. It does have the notable escape hatch of being a 0 mana artifact for artifact-centric strategies.
Well, that's double the price. Sure, you can't
Double the
get that.
price, that's why they call me Toey Tips.
Our return to Mirrodin in 2010 brought Mox Opal, which requires Metalcraft to be switched on to work, i.e. that its caster has 2 other artifacts in play.
Sup?
It contributes to Metalcraft itself as a 0 mana artifact. All 3 of these iterations saw plenty of play and have been banned across various formats, while Mox Amber, which has the sweet flavor connection of requiring a legendary creature or planeswalker to activate, and Mox Tantalite, curiously named after the ore tantalum is extracted from, I guess because it's looking into the future or someone wanted to call attention to coltan as a conflict resource, uses the suspend mechanic to slow down its fast mana, meaning that its mana boost arrives too slow, too late in the game to be of any use.
Be a little slow, be a little late, just once.
The final Mox descendant is Glee Mox, a pun one can't help but feel was seeded when Magic's designers came up with Glee Max, the brain in a jar trope that was apparently running R&D in the 90s. I guess the comparison of an entity fully focused on intellectual endeavors with a design team at Wizards of the Coast is one that you'll need to analyze and unpick for yourself, but at least it bequeathed hardcore Q players with this Mox on steroids, offering all of the benefits of the traditional Moxen, along with 5-color fixing too. And check out that flavor text. Never have I personally looked upon something as cheekily bizarre and witty. Rounding out the tongue-in-cheek Moxen, and let's all remember that humor is subjective.
You're doing somersaults?
Did 6 somersaults.
6?
Jack in the Mox, which merges the 5 Moxen with a dice rolling mechanic that would eventually make it into standard Magic 23 years later with Adventures in Forgotten Realms. I do enjoy the Moxen on the Tufts of the Jester's Cap, and Mox Lotus, which costs 15 mana but taps for infinite mana because big numbers are funny. There is a distinct change in focus and the perspective from the original Moxen artwork, all of it by Dan Frazier. up to their Vintage Masters reprints with artwork by Vulcan Barger, initially commissioned for the large prize cards given to tournament winners. With the originals, the focus is on the objects themselves. They're not quite photorealistic, but feel like detailed sketches that a questing party has obtained in their quest for these uber-powerful pieces of jewelry. In the updated versions, which also carry a modern card frame, the Moxen are being clutched, idolized, celebrated. A lot of the reprints of the second generation Moxen, like Mox Diamond, follow this silhouette too, although once we get to the Secret Lair era, anything goes. Maybe this is the cards expressing their own hype or desirability, but there seems to have been a lot of work put into characterizing each Mox. Mox Ruby seems to be coming out of a furnace, being held maybe by a hotshot Biashino blacksmith. We find Mox Sapphire out at sea, surrounded by Zendikar's Hedrons, presumably having been rescued by a plucky merfolk.
Yoink.
A church forms the backdrop for Mox Pearl, and while it's tricky to identify precisely where Mox Jet is coming from, it's probably being clutched by an enterprising tomb robber. Mox Emerald is being examined in, where else, a treetop village. Mox Opal follows this trend with a pair of partially completed hands clutching it underneath what's presumably a Phyrexian tomb.
This is a tomb.
These same hands have become fully completed by the time of its showcase artwork for Double Masters. Mox Amber sits alone at first glance, an archaeological find maybe.
This stuff comes from Stamford, down in Lincolnshire. They stopped making it about 1150.
You're kidding.
No, really.
But looking more closely, we can see the shadow of Nicol Bolas, hand ready to clutch. Probably the better of the two ways to use shadows of old Nicky B. Mox Diamonds from the Vault reprint features what seem to be human hands holding up the piece of jewelry against a backdrop that looks quite a lot like the Trevi fountain, perhaps an indication, this is diamond after all, most precious of stones, of the elevated craftsmanship of the piece. The original Dan Frazier artwork of this card certainly feels a touch more ornate than the original Moxen.
You scary. Give sparkly me. Give twinkly me.
And this level of dedication to the craft requires the caster to discard a land. Starting probably with premium cards in 1998, and reaching new heights with the Secret Lair series, Magic cards which don't themselves depict jewels also start to resemble jewelry. A fully foiled out deck is a beautiful thing to behold, but like jewelry, the foiling is ultimately useless in practical terms, and might even disadvantage the player. It represents a cost and effort that might be better invested elsewhere. Not everyone thinks in these coldly pragmatic terms, however, and the variety of cosmetic options can add real character to a game, as well as opening the door to players reskinning their own cards. I had an absolute blast reskinning existing cards as Chaos-aligned Warhammer cards, so much so that I made a rambling video about it after a few cans. What more proof could I possibly present? There is also the financial reality of keeping a game service profitable in 2025. And as has been well demonstrated elsewhere, cosmetics can help to keep the price of entry down for players who aren't as concerned with them, or who are just a bit less enfranchised. Bizarre consequences of the secondary market for cosmetics notwithstanding, I think that any system that makes a very expensive game more accessible is a good thing. I gushed about the design of Oracle of the Alpha in my previous video, and the digital design parade ain't gonna stop, because the Mox Collector cycle, as I'll lovingly call it, is a great example of the game's designers using the reserve list as a theater rather than a prison, riffing on classic cards to generate new mechanics and challenges. Part of the Alchemy expansion for Outlaws of Thunder Junction, each color of mana gets a collector who is on the hunt for their enemy color's Mox. Once you've completed their requirement, boom, you get that Mox in your hand, no 20k required. In an elegant piece of design, they each have a single activated ability which requires the enemy color of mana to activate. So if you're playing that color pair anyway, kudos to you, these cards will probably be a slam dunk. But these abilities also open up a lot of potential for brewing and drafting, since their requirements are often something you'd be trying to do anyway if you're playing with that color of mana. Ruby Collector, for example, asks the player to attack with 3 or more creatures. This can include itself, a 1-drop, and if you have red mana available, you can threaten its activated ability, pumping your creature's power. Emerald Collector, who seems to have gone into the deepest, darkest forest of giant cacti I've ever seen, requires you to draw 3 cards in a turn in order to summon a Mox Emerald into your hand, and has a triggered ability that functions like a built-in curiosity, allowing you to draw a card when it connects. 1 more card to go. If you're in blue, you can probably find it without too much trouble. Its green activated ability allows the player to pump its base power and toughness to 4/4 for 2 and a green, so again, you have the threat of activation if you have the green mana. The stratified internal synergy in this thing. Continuing up the mana curve and around the color pie, we have Pearl Collector, a 3/3 for 3 with the good old Death Touch and Lifelink combo.
This combo meal's got combinations.
It asks you to gain 4 life in order to summon a Mox Pearl into your hand, so you just need to get in there once and find a way to gain an extra 1 point of life. Leave those Archangel's lights at home. The activated ability for 2 and a white gives another creature perpetual lifelink, making it even easier to get to 4 life. Don't be tempted by that very Latin sounding keyword, it's just the arena equivalent of a lifelink counter.
New package, same as old, man.
Say what?
Ain't no new package. Just gonna put that same shit out in a different color gel cap is all.
While I'm at it, why on earth wasn't this card in the most recent Arena Cube? But it's back in the Chromatic Cube and none of the rest of the cycle are? Heresy. I know I joke about leaving comments for the algorithm, but please do actually leave a comment if you know why the rest of the cycle was included, but not this gem. Pearl.
Either subscribe, donate, or get the fuck out.
In red, we have my personal favorite, Sapphire Collector, another 3/3 for 3, but this time rocking Prowess, the keyworded mechanic that straddles red and blue. Feed the Prowess twice, and you get your Mox Sapphire. This seems easiest with blue cantrips, but stuff like Warlord's Fury will get you there too. For 2 and a blue, you can flashback any instant or sorcery in your graveyard, including Time Walks summoned by Oracle of the Alpha.
Jackpot.
Another banger of a design, showing how much fun we can have with these cards in the modern balanced game. Finally, in green, the Jet Collector does basically the Golgari equivalent of the Sapphire Collector. It's a mana cheaper for 2/2 with no keyworded mechanics, presumably because this thing isn't really brawling beyond turn 3, and needs 4 cards in your graveyard to give you your Mox Jets. Not Delirium, not Threshold, just 4 cards. Got it. You can then pay a black mana plus that creature's mana value to reanimate creatures from your graveyard, albeit with finality counters on them. It's kinda odd they didn't do the arena thing here of making them have a perpetual finality ability, since technically you could blink or bounce them. If you can ever get a deck to do this, more power to you, I guess. A card with the power to be hugely powerful, again with a pretty fair tax on your graveyard shenanigans. No inelegant once per turn fun policing here. We're conditioned to think of jewelry as an expression of love, power, or one of the other big human emotions. Its marketers place it here so they can demand the highest price for it. We attach a huge financial value to a metal with little practical utility and whose extraction destroys our planet. While MTG cards have started to mutate into trinkets, I'd argue that the Moxen have retained their aura. The exorbitant prices of the Moxen mean that in owning them, you're either filthy rich or you were around when they were vaguely affordable, a long time ago maybe, and have stayed invested in the hobby since then. One can invest in things that aren't financial assets, of course. Here then, the Moxen are more than the jewels their artwork depicts. They are status symbols obtained through hard work, dedication, experience, and a little bit of luck. Their magisterial aura represents dedication to an extremely difficult but waning craft, playing vintage, and you know that anyone using them has a story to tell. Maybe the strongest examples of the enduring aura of the original Moxen are the Dan Frazier Secret Lair collections, containing their direct descendants, the Signet and Talisman cycles. There was a time, before Commander was the primary format, that Signets were the peak of artifact ramp, and reasonably high picks in Vintage Cube. Much less powerful than Moxen, obviously, but paying 2 mana for something that taps effectively for 1, turn after turn, is a pretty decent investment outside of green. The Secret Lair package makes this lineage clear by furnishing these classic mana rocks with gorgeous, restrained artwork that taps into the otherworldliness of the original Moxen, and concurrently pays homage to the Ravnican guilds, the two-color factions for which the signets were intended to support. The martial prowess and commitment to justice of the Boros Legion is represented by two shields forming a scale with a twin blade. The Golgari swarm have a dung beetle and its captive dung that are so twinkly you might forget what they're representing. Niv-Mizzet's grasping talons encase a sapphire and a ruby to show his power over the Izzet League, while the harsh angles and regular repetitions in the Orzhov signet show the Syndicate's commitment to their own position at the top of a hierarchized society.
Give me $1,000.
1,000 more?
Christopher said 10%. $1,000.
The Simic signet has its blue and green mana wrapped in a doubled up heart. Hell of a biological innovation right there. Sorry, Brian Johnson, but the Simic will get to eternal youth way before you.
I think his rectum went viral, his rectal biological age.
The allied signets, in a separate secret lair drop, of course, begin with a subtly detailed medallion, its contours maybe hinting at the Azorius Senate's blue-aligned pursuit of knowledge. The background has a striking resemblance to the old blue card borders, with an imposing diamond in the center. House Demir's design shows their apparent ability to magically bug everything, including jewelry, as the necklace is slowly morphing into an eye. Rock Smash Rock for Gruul Clan is good. The Cult of Rakdos use what else? A skull, and adorn it with their color-aligned jewels, while the Selesnya Conclave signet shows a tree made up of homegrown crystals, which probably do have some special powers.
Check out the crystal skulls.
Oh God!
I've read loads of books about them.
Rounding things out, the Arcane Signet, maybe as a kind of parody of the overwhelming ubiquitousness of the card, jams all of Fraser's original Moxen into one extremely overladen and ornate piece of jewelry. There was plenty more Mox Aura money to be made, as Fraser was commissioned for the secret lair drops of the Talisman cycle.
Back again.
Whose flexibility meant it generally replaced the signets in Cube once it was completed in Modern Horizons 1. The original Ravnica set was instrumental in establishing the two-color identities and is reflected in the redone signets, but with the Talismans, there's a little bit more freedom. Talisman of Indulgence, for example, is slightly more disturbing than the Rakdos signet, which feels a bit like a heavy metal skull in comparison. We can detect the color pairs who maybe haven't been as creatively expanded, as the Talisman of Conviction gives us a red and white hooped shield with soldiers in the background, pretty much the same thing as the Boros signet, but the name does make it tricky to bring in the newer identity for red-white that was debuted in Strixhaven.
This is my rifle, this is my gun, this is for fighting, this is for fun.
I enjoy the books in the Talisman of Progress, as well as the apparently desolate sight of the Felwar Stone bonus card. Talisman of Hierarchy, despite its name, feels like something that would be way too fun for the Orzhov Syndicate with its lovely Russian doll-inspired design. And just to top it all off, Dan Fraser's Mox Box
Back again.
gives us Mox Opal and Mox Tantalite, two of the balanced Moxen we discussed earlier. Mox Opal has what definitely looks like an opal, and credit where it's due, the chunk of metal in the middle of Mox Tantalite certainly looks like Tantalites. Both are replete with jewels indicating the 5 colors of mana they can tap for once they're online, little micro Moxen, whispering both the storied history of these cards, their immense power, and thereby reminding the player how far away they are from the originals.
It's good to be in something from the ground floor. I came too late for that. I know. But lately I'm getting the feeling that I came in at the end.
We're kind of back to where we started, basking in the mysterious aura of the original Moxen. We don't have much of a shot of owning them or harnessing their power as directly as in the 90s, but hey, sic transit Gloria Mundi. There's a phrase which is a ubiquitous aphorism in our world, but in the world of Magic the Gathering, all that glitters is cheating mana.